And what are three beliefs you tell yourself every day?
Oh my God, that's a loaded question. Because
In
that's a
terms of
difficult.
business.
No, because I think anything I can believe, I can achieve,
Okay.
right? I really, really, really believe that.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Farah Ali Show, where we dive deep into the minds of accomplished entrepreneurs. I'm your host, Farah Ali, and be ready to gain valuable insights as we take you on a journey of inspiration and wisdom. Today, our guest is Mr. Andrew Holmes. He runs a very successful real estate seminar company, owns hundreds of rental properties, and has helped hundreds of people achieve their dreams through investing in real estate using his 257 cash flow for life model. Enjoy the show. And today here we have a special guest, Mr. Andrew Holmes. Andrew, thank you for being here.
Definitely excited to be here.
Well, why don't you start off with letting us know, what does entrepreneurship mean to you? Because a lot of people are very confused on what entrepreneurship actually is.
So, entrepreneurship, I guess, depending on what age I started, at 19, it may have meant a whole lot different than today. Today, it means failure. It means somebody who's basically extreme amount of ADD, somebody who comes up with ideas every 2 seconds. That's a typical entrepreneur. And most people think about entrepreneurs, they think about highly successful people. If you actually look statistically, most entrepreneurs are complete failures. And they're failures not because they want to be, they have big hopes and dreams. But unfortunately, the one thing that almost guarantees your success, I mean, guarantees your failure, I should say, is try to be an entrepreneur.
Okay. And can you give me the definition of what you think self-made is?
Self-made is it's a great term when you own a very small business, which is if you're self-employed and you're the only employee, you're self-made. If you have any sort of business of any kind, an actual business where you're not the only employee, there's no such thing to be as self-made. Because to have any sort of a business of any kind, even if you have a part-time assistant, even if you have a part-time somebody who helps you, actually there's no such thing as self-made. It's you need to be a successful entrepreneur. You cannot be self-made. You have to have a team. And hopefully you have a good team because that's really what leads to a successful entrepreneurship venture.
So I want to go back a little bit into your past. Was there ever a moment that you knew that you were going to be an entrepreneur?
I think from the time I was pretty young, as far as I can remember, I didn't know what the term entrepreneur meant, but I knew I wanted to do something in terms of business, and I wanted to succeed. That is all I knew. The term entrepreneurship, I think I've understood over the last 10, 15 years. So I really didn't know what the hell an entrepreneur was. I remember the first book I ever read, it said entrepreneurs are made, not born. And still, I don't think I really understood the term because it's like trying to understand something without having gone through it. So I think entrepreneurship is a process rather than something, oh, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. It's a very cheap phrase that is used without understanding what it means.
So what was it when you were young was there a point where you're like, I need to make a lot of money? Like, what was your definition back then when you were younger?
So at that time, it was a big house, it was a bunch of cars. I mean, like for most men or most boys, it's if somebody has nice cars or more cars than your parents have, that means success. If they have a bigger house. So for me, it was exactly that. That my parents, now looking back, were pretty well off compared to most people. Yet I really thought my parents were poor because I always looked at people who had more and it always bothered me, why not me? Even though we were pretty well off by 99.9% standards, but I always looked at people who had way more and I was like, why not me? So
So your driving force when you were young was about having a big house and cars.
basically,
Would you say that's the same driving force you have today?
no, not really. Not at all.
How has that changed today?
So today, I think success means the progressive realization of your goal or dream, which is all of us have a different talent, have a different ability to achieve, and we know deep down inside whether you can go to sleep or not at night, which is that the days you give it your all, be it physically, be it mentally, be it spiritually, whatever you're into, that day, it's a good day, right? And for entrepreneurs, those are very few and far between because most of us, maybe we use 5% of our abilities, maybe. And so what I feel is it's the progressive realization of our goals, dreams, and abilities that God gave us rather than chasing somebody else. For the longest time in my life, I've been chasing what he or she has, meaning looking outside for internal answers. And now I'm realizing it's not about what somebody else has, it's about what I can achieve. So,
Yeah, because you have the planes, the cars, you have all the exotic cars and all of that. How did you feel when you actually we were able to purchase those? Did you feel fulfillment?
not really, because I genuinely thought that one day I'm going to have, let's just say, a Ferrari or a Rolls Royce or a Bentley or a whatever it is. It really doesn't matter. If I was driving one, the guy that's next to me, it could be the same exact color, but his would look shinier or her Bentley would look nicer to me. It had nothing to do with what I had. It had to do more with my self esteem. That's what I found out now that just reaching those goals, which I thought was everything, is not what really is exciting. Yeah, it's exciting, meaning I can purchase a lot of things today, which at one time would have been, oh my God, right? I would have died and gone to heaven. But yet, every goal that I've achieved, by the time I achieve it, it doesn't seem like as big a deal. So the chase is more fun than actually achieving it.
Is there something that now that you've learned that, you've shifted or changed the way that you operate so that you're not constantly feeling that way?
I think I've become okay with what I have and who I am as a person, which is, I think, maturity. And I think that has to do with age also, part of it, that age has something to do with it. And I used to always feel less than. So growing up in an Indian family, both my parents were surgeons. And always the thing was, you're not good enough because you don't measure up. Because be it in your family, be it anywhere else, like the American way of encouraging a kid is by giving them praise. The
Yes.
Indian way of encouraging a kid is by pointing out the faults, right? And I had many. Like, I didn't necessarily get the good grades, and that was considered a mark of success when you were in school. Was how was your report card, right? Today the mark of success is something different, but yet that's how I grew up. And so then that was what all the conversations would go back to. And I think part of that also has to do with your self-image, self-worth. I'm not exactly sure how those are developed. Like, some kids are better at those, other kids don't have those. I think that's one thing that for me, and I think this happens for a lot of entrepreneurs, we create false enemies in our own minds. For me, they were my parents. I mean, I had great set of parents, and I would battle with it all the time, which is like, oh my God, I'm going to show them, right? And I was always that way. I don't know why I was that way, but I was always that I was trying to show something to somebody, and not sure exactly what, but that's what it was. And this was a thing in my head, like a cassette tape or whatever you want to call it, that played in my head all my life.
Yeah, I've actually recently taken classes, and that's something that I've learned is that our subconscious brain, whatever it got fed between the ages of 0 to 7, and whatever people create in their own head, it carries on throughout your life unless you release them. And there's special techniques that you can do to release things like I'm not good enough, because a lot of people aren't even aware that they have those, right? And they're just running as a program in the background. And a lot of the behavior is what has resulted from those, from that subconscious thinking.
Yeah, so I mean, I think a lot of those things, and I think part of it also is that maybe it's a cultural thing, maybe it's when you have parents that are well accomplished in whatever they do, right? Then I feel you have big shoes to fill. And even though my parents never said that, but I took it upon myself that I have big shoes to fill. So I was always battling that but I think deep down inside, I feel I have the potential even today to go way farther than where I am. and not just in terms of money, but in terms of impact, in terms of growth, right? And I didn't understand it, and maybe I couldn't articulate it. So I would say, "Oh, I want this car. Oh, I want this airplane. Oh, I want this," whatever it was, right? Yet today, it's not necessarily that what I'm after, but certainly, if I have the potential and I don't live up to it, then I see myself as a failure.
Okay. I want to shift gears a little bit into more so of, skill sets for an entrepreneur and
Sure.
what type of habits do you need to have to become a successful entrepreneur. So can you talk a little bit about what an average day looks like for you?
I mean, I think an average day for me, people will be shocked, right? If you look at a lot of entrepreneurs, we think about entrepreneurs as being very highly disciplined, right? We think about entrepreneurs as having all their ducks in a row. We think about entrepreneurs being very organized. We think about entrepreneurs being great at financial management, great at investing, great at a whole bunch of things. And yet, it couldn't be farther from the truth, right? If you take any great, say, if it's a basketball player, if it's a musician, if it's an entrepreneur, a lot of us have a lot of deficiencies, but on the other side, we have a lot of talents. And so a lot of times what happens is that most people succeed despite of their deficiencies, meaning people think that people who are entrepreneurs are highly balanced. They're not. They're actually a little wacky. And that's why when you asked me initially, entrepreneur is that person that jumps in a river and starts going upstream and forgets the paddle on the shore, right? It's entrepreneurs are unrealistic people. They don't realize that the odds are against them, right? They try to make the reality bend to their will. That's truly what an entrepreneur is. And a lot of times, a successful entrepreneur, it's simply that opportunity, right? What is luck? Luck is preparedness meeting opportunity, right? That I truly believe that as long as you don't bang your head so hard against the wall that you basically kind of end up with brain damage, right? There's a lot of people who basically, they're like, well, they think that entrepreneurship is taking big risks. Actually, it's not. Entrepreneurship is taking calculated risk, right? So that you don't basically either go bankrupt or you end yourself up into a huge disaster. Now, and it's taking calculated risks over a period of time. And that's what ends up. Most people that you see successful entrepreneurs, from the outside, their behavior may seem very, very risky, but they have over time learned how to take calculated risks, and because of that, they succeed. Like the definition, and a lot of times, maybe the audience will understand this if they think through it. A lot of times, what we think, oh my God, all the odds were against me and he made it. It's, yes, true that a lot of times there are odds against entrepreneurs, but a lot of times they come from fields where they have worked in industries for years and years, and then they break out, go on their own. A lot of times they have ideas, and they work at it for a long period of time, and then it works, right? But if people just take reckless risks all over the place, they end up being, disastrous in terms of, at least financially.
So I have a question for you. There might be several people in the audience who have corporate jobs.
Sure.
What type of advice would you give somebody who wants to go from corporate, working a 9 to 5, to becoming an entrepreneur?
It's very simple. Build on the side.
Build on the side.
Build on the side, 100%. If you look at statistically, who are people who end up millionaires, right? You would think they'd be entrepreneurs. It's not. If you look at statistics, you'd be shocked. Teachers, lawyers, accountants. Those are the 3 categories of people that actually end up millionaires. Not what you see on Instagram, not what you see on Facebook. Statistically, why? Because people who have a dependable job or a dependable way to earn a living, much easier to build something on their own. Who has the highest amount of, let's say, depression? Entrepreneurs. It's the highest amount of marriage breakups. Entrepreneurs. Why? Because they have instability of income. And what that does is it creates instability at home and instability in their minds, right? So entrepreneurship is a great thing to look at as a goal. But then if you keep a full-time job, and it can be as much as you work at Starbucks, let's say, right? And you progress to become a manager, but you're working 8 hours a day, for God's sake, right? You have time on the side. It doesn't matter. We think about people as you have to have some sort of corporate job, right? I mean, that's a corporate job. Being a barista is a corporate job. You work for a corporation,
Yeah.
right? So it really doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be a quote unquote a white collar job, but then you start building your skill set on the side, right? Kind of what you've done, right? That's a perfect example of that. And your statistical odds of success 100 times higher if you build it on the side.
And I know that you've helped hundreds or thousands of people go from, being in corporate to doing other things such as investing. Can you talk a little bit about what you do with the real estate investing and how you would go from corporate to be able to retire from corporate and into entrepreneurship, like maybe like a pathway for
So
people to
real
follow?
estate is a tool for me, right? I mean, some people maybe do different types of investing. They may open businesses. For me, it happens to be real estate, right?
Yeah.
So I feel that if you have any type of a job or you do anything else, be it a physician, be it a plumber, or be it a Uber driver, you can do real estate on the side. So my message to everybody is, number one, if you want to be a millionaire or you want to be a multimillionaire, start by not quitting your job. Keep your job, keep your full-time job, in fact, and then build it on the side. I mean, we literally have examples of thousands of people today that have gone through mastery. And you look at the people who have the highest level of success. They're always the people who are the busiest. They're not people who came in with the most amount of money. They're not people who have the most amount of education. They're always the people who keep a job, but yet they can start building on the side, right? And so be it if somebody decides real estate investing is for them or not, doesn't really make any difference. But whatever you do, keep a stable job, because what that will do is that will provide food on the table, right? Number one. And then start doing that on the side. And everybody says, well, it's going to be hard. Yet most people want to be entrepreneurs. Why? Because they associate entrepreneurship with financial success.
Yes.
That's really what it boils down to, right? There's, I want to help people. I want to change the world. To change the world, start with your own backyard, which is yourself, right? And first, you got to have a steady stream of income, and it can be doing literally whatever.
Okay.
It doesn't make a difference. Do that, and then start building on the side. So,
Okay.
and I'll give you an example of it. So early on, one time in my life, I wanted to get into real estate. I didn't have any money to invest, and I didn't know how to. That was the biggest reason more than. So I would work in the evening as a server at a steakhouse. That was money to live on. In the day I was selling real estate, that was money where I could start building a self-employment 1099 style of income. So I did that for 3 or 4 months, started creating some 1099 income, which is commissions at the time. Then for a few years, I built up the commissions. I used that as my stable income to start building investments, right? So it's much easier to use a stair-step approach. Most of us, including me, we want to skip 3, 4, 5 steps. We want to go from the bottom all the way to the top. And there's no such thing. Maybe try playing the lottery.
Okay. So in your world of, you do speaking, you teach people how to do real estate, and you've built that business, and it's very, very successful here. The base is in Chicago, but you are going nationwide. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. What are some of the strategies that you've used to build that seminar company?
I mean, to me, number one, it's my passion, meaning it's my life's work. So I believe in what we teach is right for people to do, meaning I'm not going to tell somebody something that I don't believe in, because what I say can have a financial impact on somebody's future, right? And I believe this, that when you're investing, if you do an investment right today, you're not really going to see the results for the next 5 years, meaning that you may make some money today, you may start earning some cash flow, whether if it's with rental properties, but you're not going to see a life change for 2, 3, 4, 5 years. It takes a little bit of time, right? But yet, if you make mistake today, right, meaning you make a wrong investment, it will hound you for the next 10 years. And most people don't understand that if you do the right things, it will take 2 to 5 years to see a massive change in your bank account. But yet, if you do wrong things, it will hound you for the next 10 years. I'm talking about financially, right? And when most people don't understand that, and people who don't understand that over long term, they may seem successful in the short term, but it will never last for the long term.
Okay. So I know for me personally, like anytime that I've wanted to grow, it's scary. At least for me, it is. Like it's meaning I don't really know what direction I'm going into, but I just know I want to do something more. Do you have feelings like that when you're scared, or do entrepreneurs just kind of, they just have it all together, and they don't really have any limiting beliefs or any fear of anything?
I think 3% of the population, out of every 100 people, 3% population would be what you call have sociopathy or psychopathy, right? That type of individual has no fear. They're just born that way, right?
3%.
There's nothing.
3%.
3%
Okay.
of our population, right? Now, we think of that in a negative term, right? And it's not always negative, because there are some people who are highly, highly, highly successful people, right? And they channel their energy in a very productive manner. And they tend to be, people who we know about. They're leaders of industries, right? In a lot of ways. And then there are people who are very, very negative things also. So some people channel that in a positive, and some people channel that in a negative, right? Yet 97%, 98% of people are not that. They're normal individuals like you and I, right? But yet there is a difference. I think what happens is that you have to do it despite of the fears, right? Every time I try to grow, and I think this is for everybody, anytime you try to grow, fear comes with it, frustration comes with it, anxiety comes with it, second guessing your decisions comes with it, loss of finances comes with it. Meaning you may try 3, 4, 5 things, and something will work, but yet it may not be the exact thing that you started on. And it's with companies, it's with businesses, that you start going in one direction, and actually the outcome is exact opposite. But you didn't know that, and you wouldn't have gone in the direction that is success today had you not started. So the first step is to start, right? To start working towards that, and then as you do it, life makes a way. Genuinely, if you go at something, I truly, truly believe this, that life automatically reveals a way if you are doing it with the right purpose and with the right tenacity.
Yeah, I've been able to, I'm still working on it, but train my brain of taking action is exciting, right? Rather than fear. If I sense fear, I'm like, okay, that's just disguised in excitement.
Right.
So that's kind of what, what I've been able to do. Talk a little bit about relationships in terms of your business relationships. For me, relationships have been key to, growth in my success, right? So talk a little bit about how much you value relationships around you, whether it's your employees, whether it's your business partners, or, anybody around you that may contribute to your success.
I think this is another one of those things that, everybody's old relationships are important, right? We all know that, right? We all know that. We all intellectually understand that. But what does it mean in terms of business? I think what it means in terms of business is that when you look at any company, any successful individual, right, there's a whole team of people that are behind that you don't get to see, right? And I feel it a lot today, because it's like if we do an event, right, 500-600 people show up. And a lot of times I've had people come up, they're like, oh my God, Andrew, you should be proud. I'm like, actually, no, I'm thankful. And I feel thankful because they don't have to come listen to me. They can go to 50 other seminars, yet they keep showing up over and over and over. So the speaker doesn't make the event successful. The audience that shows up is what makes the speaker successful. Meaning that the day the person who's standing at the stage starts thinking that they're somebody, that's where I think the growth stops. Truly, for everybody that shows up, that's why that event is what it is. Now, the speaker has to do their job, but I truly feel that none of us can have more than 2 or 3 intelligent ideas in a lifetime, right? And yet, you got to take that idea and then you got to sell people around you a dream. right? Whenever you are just starting out, it's just this fantasy in your head that you're convincing other people of, that, hey, one day it's going to work. And there are a lot of individuals that I don't know why they believe you when you have nothing to really show for it, but they're looking for their own thing and they see hope in you. So by partnering with you or being a part of your team or whatever, right, they're kind of hitching their wagon to you, you're hitching your wagon to them. And I think some relationships are for a season and some relationships are for a lifetime. I think that happens with businesses, that happens with marriages, that happens with a lot of different things. But hopefully along that path, you meet a lot of people that will go along with you for the ride. And truly, for an entrepreneur, and I mean, there are extreme examples of that, right? There are some people who are very, very nice, and there are some people who are whack jobs, right? Like if you take the Steve Jobs of the world and the Donald Trumps of the world, you like them or don't like them, but clearly they've done successful things at a very high level. And there are clearly a lot of people that hitched their wagon to their whatever the story they were selling, and they realized that these people are nutty people, yet they came along. So anybody who is an entrepreneur and you have a business of more than just you, right? You're going to have to basically, win friends and influence people. I mean, that's just how it is. So, and the better you get at it, the more the business grows. Like I used to be more wacky than I'm today, meaning I would go off on things, and I still do, but it's become better than I was because I realized that a lot of times, even when I didn't mean to offend a lot of people, I did, right? Not proud of it, but yet I think it's a journey every individual goes through. And that frustration for entrepreneurs, a lot of times, they're not frustrated with other people, they're frustrated with themselves, right? They're frustrated with themselves. They just don't know how to communicate to get a certain outcome. And so then it comes out in acting out, it comes out in a lot of different ways, right? But if you don't have people, you don't have a business.
So I wanted to talk, because you had mentioned about, people coming to your seminar business. And I think I came to your seminar business about 10 years ago. It's been 10 years. And I went to a couple other seminar companies before. The thing that I really liked about yours was how genuine you were when you were sharing information. I don't think I had ever met anyone who just openly shared information the way you did, which really made me feel like, oh, this guy really knows what he's doing. In the past, people would share a little bit of information, like in, other seminars, but they wouldn't really give you the meat. And you're all about giving the meat. And I know there's, hundreds of other investors who feel the same. And that's why they keep coming to your seminars all the time, because every time they come, they learn something new. But I just wanted to say kudos to you on that, because you were one of the first people that opened up my eyes that sharing doesn't mean you're giving, you're how do I say this? That you're giving anything of yourself, meaning like you're not giving something away. It's not holding you back, so.
I think today, I don't know, and I think this part of it, maybe it's a genetic thing, comes from my parents, I think. They happen to share their information, knowledge, the ability to be able to heal as a physician, as a doctor, as a surgeon, right? To me, it comes in terms of real estate, right? Because I felt that real estate investing changed my life. And so then I was extremely passionate about it, and a lot of times to my own detriment, right? But yet, I think the more you give away is the more you get in the long run. So,
yeah.
And I mean, if there's one thing that I feel I am good at, is I'm 100% genuine when it comes to what real estate can do for people. And I think it genuinely comes out, right? That's one thing I think is something I'm blessed with. And so that shows.
And I really don't think it's to your detriment, because I feel like that's one of the key reasons why you're so successful, is because you're openly sharing.
Yeah, I think it's the world more and more. That's the world we live in as we do. I mean, be it the podcast, be it so many sources I think what's missing is being authentic, right? Is missing today because there's so much information, there's so much misinformation. We don't live in an era today where there's not enough information. In fact, if anything, there's way too much information, and being able to decipher between that information is where the trick is.
So talk to me a little bit about if somebody wants to model Andrew Holmes' behavior, or your skills, not your skills, but your tenacity. What are some of the key values that you hold that are close to your heart when it comes to business?
Number one, I won't cheat anybody in business, period. Right? I mean, that's just not something that I do. Right? And I live my message, meaning that if I'm telling somebody to do something, I will do that, period. Right? And I think I learned that along the way from somebody. And I think one of the key things is that you gotta keep looking around people that are doing a lot, because what it does is it basically creates this kind of an itch, that won't be scratched unless you achieve it. And it keeps bothering you, bothering you, bothering you. And that was a big plus for me, that even when I was dead broke, I would go out to events, I'd go out to seminars, I'd go out to different things, which even though I could barely even afford it, right? But yet, I mean, I still remember the first real estate sales event I went to. I mean, and that was purely to learn how to be a real estate agent. It was a 3-day event in Pittsburgh, and I slept in my car, right? And I took a shower at the Marriott Hotel because I was too ashamed to tell anybody that I couldn't afford to live there. I mean, I couldn't afford to basically pay for a room, but I wanted to, and I'd go change in the gym and put on like a white shirt and pants because I thought these people are successful and I wanted to find out what was the secret. And I thought over time it would rub off. I mean, that was really kind of my trick at fooling myself into it. And then what I realized was success leaves clues, and you have to just model after people, I think it's become more difficult today, because literally today anybody can go rent a fancy car, make a nice little video on your phone, and you think that person is successful. So today you have to do a little bit more research in terms of, but in that way, I think I was fortunate. I found a teacher, or whoever you want to call it, in terms of real estate sales that kind of changed my life. Meaning that he was like, if you do X, Y, and Z, for me, it was cold calls, right? That was the thing I used to do as a real estate agent. And that gave me a path to success, right? And that's part of it, is that you have to expose yourself to a lot of different thoughts or different ideas. But once you do, you got to pick one thing. You got to pick one thing and then stick to it. The biggest problem with entrepreneurs, and the biggest reason for failure with 99.9% entrepreneurs, is not because they're not smart, is not because of any other reason, it's because of only one thing, is that they jump from thing to thing to thing, right? Every other day they'll hear an idea and they'll go, one day they're going to be chicken farmers, another day they're going to be real estate, then they're going to do crypto, then they're going to do something else. You got to pick one thing and become better at it than 99% of people, which is not that hard to do if you put your mind to it, right? And you'll be successful.
Okay, and what are 3 beliefs you tell yourself every day?
Oh my God, that's a loaded question. Because
in terms of business.
No, because I think anything I can believe, I can achieve.
Okay.
Right? I really, really, really believe that. And I mean, and it works. I don't know how to explain this, but I used to live in Pittsburgh, and I'll never forget this. And at the time, I couldn't really even afford a decent car, right? But I will never forget this, but there was a building called 1 Oxford Place. And right down the street from there used to be a Rolls-Royce dealership. And I used to go sit outside of it and go stare at the cars at night. I couldn't go there during the day because I felt that they would be able to just look at me and tell I was dead broke, right? I mean, and this had nothing to do with them. It had to do with my own self-esteem. about myself. But yet I used to try to figure out, how does somebody buy a $300,000 or $400,000 car? I could never work out the math, because I was trying to do the math. I'm like, if I save this much, it still never made sense how a human being could afford that, right? Yet what happens is that a lot of times, sometimes you don't know how, but life makes a way for you. And I truly, 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 truly believe that when you look at a kid and the kid wants to play baseball, right? What does a parent do? Parent puts him in little league. You're going to be a major league player, major league player, major league player, major. And what are the chances of somebody statistically becoming a pro basketball player or a pro baseball player? I mean, zero statistically. But yet, guess what's going to happen? Probably the kid is going to play in high school. Probably statistically, the kid is not going to play in college. Even if he does play in college, the chance of going pro are 0 to none statistically, right? But then because of that, he will build other qualities in him as a person that he can take and become successful somewhere else, right? And I think a lot of times that is important, that and this is as adults, this is as that you have to go and over and over and over expose yourself. And it doesn't matter if you want to be a musician, if you want to be a gymnast, or if you want to be successful in business. The principles are the same, right? And if you apply those, they work. I mean, these are laws of universe. So Earl Nightingale, in his book, he said, you become what you think about all day long, right? And people who think, oh my God, I'm such a klutz, they're a klutz. People, and there are certain beliefs I have even today about certain things where if most people saw those sides of me, they're like, oh my God, Andrew, right? You're a mess in that side of life. No question about it, right? But we all have those. But yet on the other side of it, I can overcompensate because I've worked on it. I've put more time into it than other people, right? So I don't know what the original question was, but
I think we're talking about beliefs.
Beliefs,
Yeah.
right? So I mean, the biggest issue is whatever you're passionate about, go after it like hell and high water. And if you expose yourself and bombard yourself, it will build a belief in you that you can succeed, right? And that's one thing that over time, I had a dream that one day I'll be successful. And I bombarded myself with, be it Tony Robbins, for me it was Earl Nightingale, and Mike Ferry. These were two people that I would just bombard those things all the time, all the time, all the time, all the time. And over time, your behavior becomes like that, right? And so for me, there were 3 people that I modeled after. One was Mike Ferry. Number 2 was Earl Nightingale. And when it came to investment philosophy, it was a book I read. It's called The Intelligent Investor, which is a book on actually stock market investing written by Benjamin Graham. And that's the teacher for Warren Buffett, meaning value stock investing. I took that idea and I applied that idea to real estate because inherently it was a very safe and a value strategy, which is buy blue chip stocks at a really, really good price and then basically hold on to them forever. I took that exact same concept and I replaced it with real estate, which is what I teach, which is own properties forever and ever, have them all paid off, and it'll pay off cash flow like no tomorrow. And so I took those philosophical ideas and applied them, and the rest is history.
Okay. Can you tell me a little bit about how you come up with your future goals? Is it just something that, pops in your head? Do you have strategy behind, what your next goals are?
No, I mean, I don't know, but I mean, I knew I always wanted to be successful. And successful to me was, as a guy, I'm coming from a male perspective. For a woman, it may be different, but as a guy, I wanted to have money because then I thought I could impress the women, right? And I could certainly shut up my parents, right? This is just how my brain worked. And men have juvenile brains most of the time. And until they have families. Once they have a family, then a different thing kicks in. But otherwise, that's how my brain worked. I came here from India. I came back here from India when I was about 16. I told my parents I was going to be super successful. and I didn't know how. And so till I became, at least I exceeded their financial expectations, I was just hell bent on proving that I could be successful. And success to me meant one thing and one thing only. That meant money. That's it, right? I mean, my brain, even when I went to college, I didn't go to college to get a degree. I went to college for one reason. I wanted for the counselor to tell me, hey, what is the profession that makes the most amount of money? I didn't want to drink. I didn't want to party. I was just, that's just how I was built, right? And I was clear even when I was a little kid. Like, I used to tell my friends, I'm like, one day I'm going to buy an airplane. At the time, I didn't even know somebody could own an airplane, right? I mean, I had no concept, but from whatever reason, I think part of that credit goes back to my parents, that they always, basically, my dad looked up at things and he liked nice things. So somewhere by osmosis, that got transferred over, right? And I was like, oh, I like nice things. Then the question was, okay, how do I achieve them, right? And really, that's what it was. I mean, I will never forget this. In college, my friends would go and count the amount of beers they were drinking in the bar. I was counting the amount of people in the bar to figure out how much money the guy who owns the bar was making, right? And I would tell my friends when they're lit, man, can you imagine? They had like 300 people in the bar. Everybody was charged $7 cover. And I knew they were selling cheap beer. And so I was trying to figure out, okay, how do they make money, right? And so that's how it was.
You know, I used to think that entrepreneurs were people who just just spent money and, ran, just basically just spent whatever they wanted, right? So one of the things I noticed about you as an entrepreneur was you had a very conservative approach. You would only spend money based on, I don't know what that formula is. Is it based on a certain amount of income, like a percentage? Is it based on, your upbringing? Like, how do you know when it's okay to spend money?
So I look at it times 4. This is basically my formula.
Okay.
Anything I can afford that I want to afford, if I can pay for it 4 times over, then I'll buy it once, right? So if it's a car, and that's the rule I use, right? It's times 4. So basically, if I can pay for the car 2 or 3, 4 times over, then it's okay for me to buy it, right? And I have, so there are 3 types of individuals. People who become good at earning money, people who become really, really good at saving money, right? And people who are very good at investing money, right? I know I'm not good at saving money, for sure. I'm good at earning a lot of money now, and which I had to become good at that, right? I was not that way. And I think that takes a process, right? So for most people, the highest earning years for most men is between 52 and 57. That's the highest earning years for most men. So maybe I got there at 42, 43, right? But so what I did was I skipped number 2, which was saving money, right? So one of my business partner happens to be Rahul. He's Indian. So he has that mentality of every penny he earns, he'll save a time and a half, meaning he just does not, number one, his needs are not much, and he just will not spend that much money. That's just who he is, right? I like nice things, so I spend more than most people. But what I always do is, as soon as the money comes in, it gets invested, right? As soon as it comes in, it gets invested. So then I don't have any left in the bank account as such to spend. So whenever I'll buy, be it an exotic car or something crazy that maybe people from outside may look, what I'm doing is I'm only spending the earned part of the income. I never, ever, 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 I have never in the last 14 years ever touched a nickel of the money that the investment spit out. I reinvest that all. So I look at it third. A third to about a third of it to half of it goes back into reinvesting in the business, be it in the seminars, events, be it in real estate, right? Any cash flow that's generated, 100% goes back as reinvestments. Then a third of it, you're going to end up, a chunk of it, you're going to pay in taxes, right? Any which way. And then a part of it, you can go enjoy. So basically, my whole thing is that a part of it, I take that as earned income only, and I spend that. So if I don't make as much, then I'm not going to spend as much. So
That's awesome. Yeah. I know most people who spend basically 90% of everything that they make.
no, I mean
Yeah.
it bothers me. I mean I happen to like some cars and airplanes. That's really where I maybe spend way more money than most people can imagine. But I don't care for expensive restaurants. That's not my thing. I don't care for very luxury vacations. That's not my thing. I'm happy with a basic vacation. I'm happy, right? So a lot of people, and I bought things from time to time. And what I realize is that it doesn't really get me going. For some people, it's buying a bunch of watches, right? Buying a bunch of stuff. I bought one and I'm like, okay, I'm done. For the rest of my life, I'm done. I mean, if I never bought another watch, I'd be perfectly happy, right? So my needs in that way are actually very few.
So it's planes and cars.
Yeah, planes and cars, but even with a car, I mean, I have a simple rule for me, that if I buy a car, I am not going to sell it. I'm going to get my use out of it, right? I mean, when it was a Mercedes, I got 14 years out of it, and I still have it, right? If I bought a Ferrari, believe me, I will get the next 10 years out of it,
That's
right?
the Indian in you.
It's whatever, but it's like I don't mind splurging money on nice things, but then I am going to get my money's worth, what I justify as my money's worth out of it, right? I don't have to change. And what I've realized is this, that at this point, what I have enough. I don't need any more. Doesn't mean I'm not going to do it, but at some point you have to kind of find that happy spot, so that if even at a certain age, if cars and this and buying stuff is going to basically make you, I mean, I know some people that keep buying stuff, be it purses, be it a bunch of stuff. And I think for some people, it's like crack, right? It's like they need another hit, another hit, another hit. And for me, crack is buying houses, meaning buying more real estate is my crack, right? So I'm very fortunate. So I can make a lot of money. I don't save, I invest it right away. So then, and I have a simple rule that if I make a lot of money from investments, I will never spend it on myself. It's simple, right? I mean, that's just not happening. So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, maybe my nieces or nephews will be rich bastards, but that's just what it is.
That's an extremely conservative approach.
Yeah, I
which-
mean, that's just how it is.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. Well, what's next for Andrew Holmes?
next is business growth. Not just, so until now, I was investing. I did investing and I did the events and seminars and all that stuff on the side because it was my little business. Now, investing is something I have to do, right? That obviously, what am I going to do with the money? I invest it, right? So for me, it happens to be real estate, right? But now, what I decided was I love the being able to share, being able to kind of make an impact, right? And it makes a lot of money. I mean, it's both, right? And I've built a huge group around it, right? So I think we can have a bigger impact. So I want to grow that side of the business, right? So that's the next goal is, and it's both on the Hispanic end of it, not only just in English, but on the Hispanic end of it, and on the women end of it, because I feel those are huge, huge, huge opportunities. And I feel that there's really nobody in that space that does it well. So I think we have a huge ability to make an impact.
So, what actually is your business philosophy when it comes to real estate investing?
So to me, I feel everybody in America should have 5 houses that they pay off. So they should have 5 rental properties. We call that 257. 2 years, 5 properties, pay them off in 7. And like every single human being in America should have 5 rental houses that are paid off. And I know it sounds wacky that how can everybody have 5 rental houses that are paid off? I'm clear that not everybody in America will do it. They should, but they're not going to, right? 65% of the nation today are renters. But see, here's the thing. Whether you like it or not, you're going to buy a house. whether you like it or not. The only difference is either you're going to do it for yourself or you're going to pay off 3 or 4 houses in your lifetime for a landlord, right? I believe the easiest and simplest way for even a person who is a fry cook at McDonald's, they can buy 5 houses today in America and have the tenants pay them off over the next 7 to 10 years. And my job, I feel, is to brainwash as many Americans as possible to pay off a minimum of 5 houses, because that's financial independence.
You've actually helped, I mean, I don't know how many thousands of people, right, invest in real estate and be able to buy that at least a minimum of 5 properties. With you making such an impact with the people around you, your communities, like, how does that feel to you when you see people become extremely successful in real estate?
I don't feel anything.
You don't feel anything. Why?
I don't feel it. I genuinely believe this, that I'm a conduit, right? A pastor is a conduit for whatever religion, be it in a mosque, be it in a temple, be it in we call them by different names, right? But they're a conduit for that particular message of God that they believe in, right? And I truly believe that I'm a conduit to convincing people that they should do well financially for themselves. And here's why I believe I'm the guy who needed that help. And today I'm able to inspire that in other people, right? And so now I do feel very gratified that when we do a 3-day event, right? To me, that's a religious experience, because there are people literally 3-4 years ago, 5 years ago, that had nothing, right? I mean, if you take, I guess, your own example, right? Today, I don't know, 60, 70 houses, whatever you have, right? From where you started, put everything aside, and from the journey that you took, right? I mean, we have hundreds and hundreds of those examples. At the end of the day, I had a message to share, but you had to do the work, which is you had to basically believe in that philosophy, and then you had to do the work, right? And so I truly believe that be somebody who's a coach, somebody who can lead you, somebody who can inspire you in some way, at the end of the day, they are kind of showing you the way, and then you have to do the work, right? And so that's my job. So I don't really feel that. Now, I take pride that there's a huge community that has been built around it. And really, I did it selfishly because I didn't have anybody I could relate to, right? And I think most entrepreneurs have this biggest problem, is that even when they become successful, they have no place to belong, because they don't belong with most people, right? And even their family a lot of times doesn't understand, their own spouse doesn't understand what the hell they do, right? And so for me, I realized that I couldn't really relate to most people. So then I built a community around me to support me. And as a consequence of that, it's become a community that's much larger than me, right? And so that's just kind of I never thought it would work out this way, quite honestly. I mean, I never even dreamed of it, but I think I did it with the right intent. That's one thing that, a couple things I did, I believe, with 100% the right intent. And that was, one, was believe in my basic philosophy of 257, 2 years, 5 properties, pay them off in 7, 100%. And I lived that message. And then number 2 was that there's a lot of people that can be a part of the community, support each other, and grow. And those 2 ideas have definitely worked.
If people want to join your community or want to learn investing, how do people get a hold of you?
I mean, social media, Andrew Holmes Real Estate, and they can reach us.
You have a podcast of your own, correct?
A podcast, yeah, we do a podcast. It's called Cash Flow for Life.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Andrew, so much for sitting down and chatting with me. It's been very eye-opening.
Definitely. Thank you very much for having me, and best of luck. And anything we can do to contribute, let us know.
Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Awesome.